Welcome everyone to the webinar. We are super excited to have Sharone here today to teach us on a masterclass about how to talk about your art. This is one of our masterclass topics that has come up a lot from artists, just trying to figure out how to best position yourself for sales. And so Sharone is an artist herself, but she also is the lead curator for the Superfair. So has a lot of experience coaching artists just on fair preparation and just like positioning and branding. So it's going to be a really great conversation and just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Um, Please make sure you're on mute. We'll try to keep the presentation a little bit shorter. And for the first half of the call, Sharone will have the mic and kind of just like talk through everything that's included here. And then if you have questions as we get started, please feel free to drop those in the chat. And at the end, we'll open it up for more of a group dialogue. We want this to be more conversational and more informal. You know, people should feel comfortable asking vulnerable questions. It's a safe space. It will be recorded for everyone who's on. So if you need to drop, we'll send you a recap after. We're always very comprehensive with our recaps. So don't worry about missing any information. And we'll also send Sharone's contact information as well as a follow-up. So again, thank you all so much for being here. I think we have about 100 RSVPs. So I think more people will kind of filter in over the course of the next couple minutes. And as they do, I will just start by, I guess if you don't know me, like I'm Kendall, so I'm the co-founder of Cohart. I work with Lauren, who's the other Cohart bubble. I think you probably have met both of us if you're in the community. And yeah, really excited to talk about Sharone today. We've worked at the Superfair for a couple months now. They were the first fair we partnered with, and they're a really important fair organization because they are one of the first organizations that helped basically create space for independent artists to exhibit in fair settings. So, traditionally art fairs have been reserved for galleries and you don't have a space to even showcase if you're an independent artist. And this fair like really celebrates the fact that artists have direct sales channels. It helps them position themselves to be successful with in-person sales. And we had the opportunity to talk to Sharone a couple months ago about how she curates the fairs. And again, I think it's really relevant because she's an artist herself. So she's not only selling work directly to her clients and building her own brand and her own community, but she's actually deciding who's featured in the fair and, helping them get ready. And so I think, again, her wealth of expertise is going to be really valuable for us all to dive into today. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Sharone. So thank you so much for being here. And Mike is all yours. We'll let you do your prez and then we'll facilitate the Q&A.
Amazing. Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I feel like that in the art world, we spend so much time feeling like we have to hide our tricks and tools and things. And I just love that there are more and more spaces, and Cohart in particular is opening these spaces for these conversations, for artists to be able to come together and for leaders in the industry to be able to just share knowledge and opinion. So yes, I'm Sharone Halevy. I have been a full-time artist for many years and also have been, as Kendall said, the lead curator and the operations manager of the Superfair. And so we're going to really kind of break down just what it means to talk about your art from a few different perspectives. You're just going to see also some fun photos of me. So enjoy that. Uh, and we'll actually even get to photography later, but we'll get there. So this whole thing that we're going to do is really breaking down how this can affect you and your sales, the way that you talk about art, what is your marketing, and how to talk to your different audiences. And this is all so, so, so important because unfortunately, the age of being an introvert and being an artist, which means you are alone in your room and sad and tortured, just doesn't fly anymore. You can be sad and tortured, but you have to know how to talk about it and how to present it to people that are interested in your work. Um, and something really huge about that is this big change that I have been seeing in the art buying community, that people are actually really starting to gear away from going to galleries and more people that are that think that they are not versed in art are becoming more interested in buying art. And that is one of the beautiful things that happened in our favorite time period known as COVID, where people were sitting at home and looking at their empty walls and suddenly being like, oh, maybe I don't just want IKEA art in my home, um, but I don't know where to begin. So this is where you, as the artist, are able to really get in on the ground floor. So all of that is to say, your opinion is what will make you stand out. And we can say it with all of the twinge and awkwardness, but it's actually very true. Um, we're all good artists, right? Everyone is good at what they do. Otherwise, it wouldn't be our careers. It wouldn't be a thing we're pursuing. It's not about being good and bad. You might be sitting next to another artist that does a very similar thing to you, right? That's okay. But the thing that's going to ultimately connect you to your buyer and not their buyer is why you are creating. What is your opinion? What is it that you are saying? And it doesn't have to be a lofty manifesto. It's really just knowing who you are and not trying to adjust to fit something else, right? Um, there's a really fun thing that I think about how back in the day, people would all paint lemon peels because it was a competition as to who could paint the best lemon peel. It was like a big, pardon, pardon me, but like a big dick competition, right? It was people basically being like, look at my lemon peel, but I have this and I have this. And then different folks would come to these galleries to look at these painted lemon peels and fight over which lemon peel they loved. And ultimately, no one can win because of the different opinions of the representation of lemon peels. Um, so that's a really big thing to honor about yourself and to really develop for yourself, which takes us to what is your pitch? And our really the worst phrase that we can say, but it is very real in today's day and age, your brand. Um, and we'll get to brand a little bit more, but I just wanted to put that in here so you can kind of mull on that as we talk about these things. So there's different ways to approach talking about your art, right? There's the art speak that is for your client versus the art speak when talking to a gallery or speaking to uh like a residency or an art competition, all of these things. So when you're talking to a client or if you're in an art fair, everyone's favorite question is, tell me more about your art. And it feels like the worst question in the world because you stand there as an artist and you're just like, "Hmm, ding, 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 ding," right? At least that's what my brain sounds like. Uh, so when you are talking to a potential client, and very likely it's someone that is not in the art world, which I love, right? It's like I personally make art so people can have art. I'm a commission-based painter. I am actually not a gallery-based painter. I don't work with galleries even if I've been approached by them. Um, and it's because I love that one-on-one relationship and being very, um, what's the word? Being approachable and breaking down those barriers around art, right? So that's a large part of how I talk to my clients. And it's not about being like, well, I use pigment PS 106 for my cerulean blues, and I use this type of brush and the palette knife. It's that kind of very technical art speak can kind of make people glaze over, right? How a programmer can come talk to you and be like, yeah, this is what I do. I did this kind of coding, and we're there and we're just like, I don't even know what to do with this. It can be very similar. which brings me back to what is art buying today? It's a much more emotional investment these days. It's a lot more of people being like, what is legacy? This idea of fast fashion is kind of going out the window a little bit. Same with art. People are eager to buy things that they connect to and that they're able to invest in and pass on in the world to their children, um, or their best friend's child, you know. And I think the way that we're able to speak about our art is about automatically inviting a strong idea of who we are, why we paint, our opinion, that also invites questions. So, for example, when I talk about my art, I'm always like, yeah, so I'm a abstract painter, and basically what that means is I like to take the feeling of the memory of a very specific idea, right? It can be a really, really weird thing like my cat eats flowers and therefore I can't keep flowers in my kitchen. And that excites me, that very specific phrase. And so, oop, there we go. Thank you. And so, because of that, I like to take that image and abstract the feeling of that. So it's like taking a camera and moving it so it's blurred, but for some reason, we still understand the moment. And then that starts to lead into more questions, right? And then I can be like, so with this painting, I like to use water or I like to stain the canvas because of X, Y, and Z. It's not about talking to anyone like they're a kid. It's more about helping them look at your work from a new lens. It's about helping someone be able to step back and then want to zoom in and be like, oh, I never thought that something like an abstract painting can have that much detail. So now I'm seeing the story. There's a line, there's this, right? If there's something specific to your process, then that's another thing that you get to bring up. So after you get to hook them in with the emotional side and how your point of view as a painter is going to get them to connect to you and your art, you then can be like, my process is this. So I, for example, take hyper specific thoughts or memories and I love to create them. And then I also have synesthesia, so I paint to sound. So every single painting is very intensely associated with a specific soundtrack. It could be an ASMR, it can be uh, anything at all. And those combined create this work. So you want to think about the way that you're talking about your art from that mental game that's kind of fun and letting people in on what feels like a secret, but is actually very open. You always want it to feel like a conversation with a friend. And even when talking about process, it's the same thing. When I say people are scared of art, they are scared of art. People are so scared of artists and of artwork. People are scared to go to the museum because they think they're not educated enough. When at the end of the day, if anyone says they're an art expert, I kind of call bullshit because I'm like, no one knows anything. No one knows anything except maybe the artist. And they're not always around to talk. So if you're here, it's just about sharing. But if they buy your painting and they go home, they're just going to continue existing with that work and inside of the life of the work that you offered. So again, when you talk about your art, it's about helping them just connect to it emotionally. And that is going to happen through the way that you connected to the idea that caused you to create the art. And here's the thing. Sometimes there was no big inspiration. And sometimes you were doodling and that's your art. And for some reason it was great and you're just going to sell it. There's a way to talk about that as well. But that is then when your process is going to be really helpful, right? Like I went and did this residency once in Finland. I was away for a month in a no technology residency. It was great. And throughout that time, I wanted to just create a painting a day. And some of those works had big meaning, and other works, it's because I was really pissed off because genuinely I missed doom scrolling on my phone. And that was the painting. Talking about that, that was the first painting I sold. Completely meaningless. Literally me saying, I miss my phone. That was the inspiration of the painting. But then it brought up this conversation around, wait, tell me about this residency. Tell me, like, what was this process of creating a painting a day? How did that feel? Why did you want to do that? All of a sudden, from just sharing a story, you're supposedly all now being like, wait, what was that residency? No technology. How would I do as an artist? I want to learn more about that. That's all it is. So the thing that's tricky about this is practicing. You have to really start thinking about what is my version of talking about my art, and about my process, and how do I get better about talking about it with people? Your friends and your family are your worst audience, and therefore they're the best people to practice on. There's no one you're going to be more nervous to talk to about your art in a real way than them, because they just know you as someone who paints or draws or creates for a living. And I have a feeling most of you have never really had an in-depth conversation with the people in your life about what you do that are not fellow artists. So that's a really, really amazing place to start. And let them tell you if it was clear, if it was not clear, what do they wish they knew more about in the beginning? And then as you go and go into an art fair or are wearing a painting shirt because you're going out on a coffee break, and then there's always going to be someone in line that's going, are you a painter? And you go, yes, I am. And then they'll always ask, what do you do? And then voila, you have your practice session right there. So those are all really, really helpful things to think about. I know I threw a lot at you, so thank you. So then the next part is if you do commissions. Uh, I love commissions. That's my bread and butter. I know commissions are not for everyone. And a large part of why a commission ends up being really frustrating for a lot of people is because you feel like you have lost control over your art. The biggest thing that I have found people really, really need to bring into their commission work when presenting it to a client is what is your commission process? It's not just you see my art, therefore you send me a photo and I paint your dog. That's not going to make you feel good as an artist. That's not going to make your client feel good as well. So you have to really, really create the rules around what your commission process is. And then from there, how do you collaborate with your client, which is kind of a collaboration, but it makes them really feel like there's a collaboration, right? And then you can go off and do your process. Because at the end of the day, if someone's hiring you for a commission, then what they are doing is saying, I trust you, your opinion, your point of view to create this thing for me and my home. And then always have in a contract some kind of a clause. If there's something they're unhappy about, how can that work out? But that's a completely different webinar. But talking about pitching your commission, you need to have a very easy, very quick way of talking about it. So, for example, after I've had the whole like, this is who I am as an artist, this is my process. By the way, I also do commissions. And the way that commissions work is we set up a call. You talk to me about your specific memories, your specific ideas, and then we can talk about color. And then you actually provide me with what I listen to while I create your work. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh my God, this painting is going to so be about me. That's all you need. You don't have to over explain. You just have to give them the rules So they're able to give you information, and then you can go off and still be the artist that you are, that is also actually excited to create the work that you are creating. So that's kind of that commission pitch, right? And then there's our favorite thing, which is pricing. I know we all love to talk about pricing. There are no rules. There are just none. And I'm so sorry to say that. The advice that I can offer about pricing is be careful of pricing emotionally. If there's a painting that you feel like you're only going to be able to sell for $35,000 because you love it, maybe don't sell it. And maybe keep it for yourself and your home. If you feel like there's going to be a painting that hurts you to let go, from my own experience, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, don't. There's one painting that, let me tell you, I sold in 2014, and it funded an amazing trip for me, did all the stuff. I think about this painting every day, literally every day. My biggest regret was selling that painting. I mean, there's other regrets in life, but my biggest art regret is selling that painting. Um, but that being said, there's a really big benefit to having different tiers of cost for your works. If you want to be as accessible to as possible to your audience, and there's people that might start to fall in love with your work but can't afford something at the moment, having things that are between the 100 to $700 range. It could be small works, it could be larger, but maybe they're on found materials, is great that people can have access to. Those are amazing price points for big sales, for things around holidays that people are looking for gifts. You always want to have something inside of your repertoire that someone can just take, even if it's small, but then it's living in their home and they're looking at it every day. And it's going to create conversation with their friends, their family. And then down the line, they're going to get that bonus. And then they're going to come to you for an actual work of art or commission. I've had people buy small works of mine in like 2020 or 2019 and have come back this year. This happened 3 times this year. I don't know why, where I've gotten huge commissions that are like 4 feet by 5 feet, 4 feet by 7 feet. That happened this year because they had a small painting from back then and they finally saved up. They moved and they finally had the wall space. They left New York City and were like, I now have a proper dining room. So that's an amazing first price point. Then you want your first time art buyer price point, which is that like 750 to 2,800. And that is going to be that amazing price point that allows a lot of generative revenue to start to come in. That is the place where people that are in their 30s and their 40s, maybe even their 20s, that are like, I can finally buy some real art. I can spend up to 3,000, right? It doesn't hurt them to think about it. It's not a crazy large investment, but it's something. And then you have your 3,000 plus. That is for your collectors, your other serious folks. And I know this doesn't sound like crazy high pricing, but we have to remember we're always operating from what we were taught, which is gallery pricing. Galleries take 50% of what we make, and therefore they double the cost of our work. So when you think about not having a gallery, what you would price your work with that, and then half it, you're making the same amount and you're more accessible. Your work is in more spaces, be it offices, lobbies, homes, whatever. And word gets around, and you'll start to have a bigger trickle because your audience has had that personal connection to you. They know your story, they know why you create, and they're going to want that in the moment. Ooh, there's an echo.
It's
Okay.
fun now. Yeah.
Mm,
Little visit from the aliens of Zoom.
right. We love aliens. The aliens are interested in art. So all of that. I know there's a lot of questions coming in. We will definitely get there. We're so close, guys. We're so close. Unfortunately, we are going to talk a little bit about social media and branding, but it's just, I know this is the hardest thing to do, right? Is how
Mhm.
do we connect all of the things that I talked about into how we present it also when we are not in person? Really, you just have to think about when people look at your website, at your Instagram, your TikTok, whatever is your digital footprint. And this also includes your cohort profile, right? How are you sharing yourself in this sphere? And
Mhm.
lets
Agreed.
people also understand you in a written and digital form, where you are still able to be presented for what it's like to connect with you. Having a lot of likes, a lot of followers, it doesn't matter. As long as the people that are following you are consistent and they are engaged with you, that's what matters. I know people that only have like 500
Everything.
followers,
Sure.
but they're able to live as an artist full time because of those 500 followers, right? So do not worry about how many people, worry about your quality. So think about what is your brand. And I don't mean the colors, your logo, things like that. I just mean in terms of how do you want people to feel when they experience your work and look at pictures and things along those lines? Do you want to create a like moody, serious vibe? Are you all like, let me be Dostoevsky and proper and I want that vintage feeling? Are you quirky and fun and warm? All the things are how you want to start to think about what you're representing. And then that helps you create content. Do you want to share behind the scenes? Do you want to share a lot of detail about the works that you're creating? Is it about I don't even know. That's the fun thing that you get to play with when you think about what is your process, what are you able to connect into what you are sharing to the outside world. Please have a functioning website, please. When you are, and I am really thrilled after this. If you wanted to email me your website for me to look at it and let you know if it's easy to use, awesome. I'm so thrilled to do that for you. Um, but you want your website to be easy to navigate, have a really exciting opening image. Just again, all the ways that lets people in to know who you are as an artist and how they can trust you as a person with their story and with their money. Um, so yeah, all of these things, pulling keywords from your pitch so it's consistent across the board. You want your Instagram, your website, and then your in-person pitch to all be the same. No surprises. Consistency is key. Uh, Also, it's helpful to just keep track of your audience. What is working as you're posting? What are the things that you see gets more recognition? What are people commenting on? Why? Are there questions that are happening? Um, if you look in your analytics on Instagram, which if you go to your little hamburger menu and you could see the data of who's following you, um where are they from? You might be surprised. Like, I have a very strangely large following in Texas. No idea. I went to Texas once for 4 days with my dad for his 70th birthday. That's what I got. And yet, I would say 30% of my commission clients come from Texas. So it's helpful then when I think about adding location to my images to include Texas, because I know that is where they're going to connect to. So spend a little bit of time on whatever social media platform you're using, your website included, to see if you could see where your demographic is from and how to help continue getting your work viewed in that area. Which also leads me to say, if you are signing up for an art fair like the Superfair, think about where's the right place to show your work. Maybe if you live in New York City might not be the right place for your art, for your inspiration, for the way that you look at the world. It could be that you should actually be showing your art in San Francisco. These are all things to really consider. Um, so we kind of said, what do you want people to feel when they look at your stuff? And photography, good photography. It's so important. How to photograph your artwork. If I go to your site and your painting is diagonal and it creates that weird warped look of your art, I'm not going to buy it. It doesn't look professional. It makes it feel like you don't actually respect your own art. So get some cheap lighting from Amazon even. Light your works well. You can use your phone. These phones are great. You don't need a fancy camera, but make sure your stuff is properly centered. It's not weird. There aren't weird backgrounds unless the background is very much part of the photography. Um, and good photos of yourself. You need good photos of yourself. People, I know we hate it. We really hate it. But people love the artist. If you have a business card, really not only your artwork, but have your face on the card as well, especially if you're doing a fair, because there's 100+ artists at these fairs. They're coming to talk to you, and then they're going to talk to someone else. They're probably not going to remember your name. It's not anything personal. It's just overwhelming, but they'll remember your face and they'll remember your energy and they'll remember your story. These are all the things that you have to connect all the way back to that first point of what is your opinion? Who are you? How do we create those meaningful connections? So have good photography if you walk away with anything. And it's fun. It's fun to honor yourself and like do a good photo shoot with a photographer. I, it really helps you gain a lot of confidence and also understand your process because you have to talk to the photographer about what you want them to capture. And that's my story, folks.
Amazing. Thank you, Sharon, for the prez. Very excited to open it up for Q&A. We have a couple questions. I'm going to start with mine just because it was burning as you were talking.
Yeah.
When you're talking and sparking conversation as a way to kind of get everything going, right? Whether that's at a fair or in a different setting, how do
Mhm.
you kind of like direct it towards a sale? That's my first question. And then
Mhm.
in terms of making that spark happen, like if someone emails you, how do you kind of recommend like or DMs you? Because in person it makes sense to be like, oh, we'll talk about it if they come up to me, tell me about your art. But how do you also facilitate that kind of conversational guide in a digital setting?
Yeah. So it's such an amazing question. Um, what you kind of have to do is then uh, be honest about making a sale, right? So how do you add that in and being able to say, like, yeah, this is my process and this, but with this specific work, uh, there aren't going to be many works like this. So if you really connect to it, I would really recommend actually getting it now. Otherwise, if it sells, I don't really know if it will be around later. With commissions, I say to people, if you really love my work that you're seeing recently, this is the time to buy because my style changes every X amount of time. You don't want to be like, buy this painting, but there are times where you're able to say, hey, I love that we're talking about this. I am curious, are you interested in actually purchasing a piece of work? Because I can also help guide you through the works that I have. What is your budget? What is this? Talking about money is not taboo. If they're coming to you, it's because they want to purchase your work. So get rid of the awkwardness around it. You gotta just be like, hey, I love that you connect to my work. Let's find the right piece for you. So, what is your budget? Do you need a payment plan? And then we can go from there. If you are scared about it, it's going to make them scared about it. And all of a sudden, talking about spending $3,200 on a painting isn't as awful because it's not awful for you. It's your consistent thing. So, again, this all comes with how you practice. We've all spent times in a shower where we're in those fake arguments, the things that we wish we said to someone, and we're like yelling at our bar of soap and we're like, no, do that instead with practicing your art speech, talking about how to talk about getting someone. And if it's about being in the digital sphere, work on typing it out. I
Mm.
know this all sounds wild, but it will help practicing the work of like, okay, uh, thank you so much for reaching out. I love that you're so drawn to this work. I would love to know what makes you so interested in it. And I'm also happy to provide pricing and a payment plan whenever you are comfortable to go ahead with the purchase. Or how can I help this decision be easier to make for you to buy this work?
Yeah.
So those are the ways to kind of handle that in the digital sphere.
Digi realm. Okay, perfect. We had our first question is from Ray. Ray, I know you're off camera and on mute. If you want to jump in, feel free. I'll kind of repeat it, but feel free to elaborate. Just a question about the process pitch. So when you're working in a process forward media, like relief printing, how much of the process do you go over so it's interesting and understandable, but not overwhelming? And then Amanda kind of built on it by saying that's relevant to ceramics as well. So curious how you would approach that.
Yeah. So always ask the person first, how much do you know about this type of art? And if they're like, I know nothing, it's like, cool. And so start first. What I like to say is from the feeling of it. I love doing cyanotype because I really love the act of being in the sunlight. And that's how it then relates to my work. The process is, and just offer three quick bullet points about what is the technical side of it, and then you bring in that emotional stuff,
Mm.
right? So it excites them to learn about that very process driven art form because sometimes that is a huge part of what the art is, right? Like there are works for me that are like, I create these paintings, but this painting was actually all finger painting. I did
Mm.
this completely with my hands, and it's because I wanted to feel closer to the paint, right? I don't know. But if you have a process driven uh, medium, then definitely find a way to include that. I would just not go too technical. Think easy bullet points. If you were going to teach a class on it, how would you write about getting novices to sign up for your class?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it makes a lot of sense, the comparison with the engineering and coding as well. It's like people want to understand something, but they don't want to feel inundated with like, and feel incompetent, when you're talking.
Exactly. It's like people, if they buy the art, they want to be able to say to someone else what your process is. So they sound like they know what they're talking about, but they're never going to be able to do it. It's not about giving away the tricks of the trade. It's about just helping people understand what they're buying.
And
Totally.
if it's okay, I'll jump in on that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's okay. I recently had an experience this weekend, and um, I sent my link. There's a video on my process on my website. I
Love.
pretty very unique in this art form that I do. Um, just came back from the Armory show,
Love.
inspected it completely. Nobody's doing hand cut paper stencil screen prints on paper and creating collages out of them. So went to Art Basel past 2 years, like really honed in on like, am I the only guy doing this? And I believe I am. And so this weekend I'm constantly always explaining my process at all my art openings. Collectors are like, oh, you're doing the T-Rex arms. And I'm like, and then I screen print and then I cut. And then they're like, he's doing the talk. Like, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
give his thing. I've done the other art fair, the art in the Hamptons, all, I'm here because it's always good to know the fundamentals again and to always not have, you think you know it all. No, there's always something more to learn. And it's exactly that application of you saying, well, it's like someone who's coding explains. And I was like, wow, that hit me like a brick. And it brought my point to direct on this talk that we're doing here is this weekend I was debuting a new limited edition of prints to a group of people who all had pre-purchased, and there was other people buying there. And a woman came up and she's like, "Oh, these are your digital prints." And I'm like, "No, I don't make digital. I don't, it's all hand cut, paper stencil, screen print." She's like, "Oh, fabulous. So you sold out and these are the digital pictures." And I said, "No, uh, no, I hand cut out of paper and I screen print onto paper and I throw out the stencil and it's all unique and original and you only get 20, you know?" And she said, "Okay, so if I wanted to buy the digital one, like, so my point is also remember people can be drunk at these events." So even if you're trying to explain yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. I will
don't
say
forget
though,
the power of alcohol. And then I said, "This
it's
lady's
very real.
hammered. I gotta stop trying to talk to her."
Yeah. But I will
That's
say
just a
that
lighter point, even if
some,
you're explaining, the people might not even.
yeah. Well, and then there's something, I mean, with those people, then you got to kind of just be like, absolutely. And then you know what? She might just buy it. You don't got to try to convince her it's not what it is then. If she still wants to buy it, then just let her buy it. If she wants it to be a print, you know what? Release. But then that's actually very interesting. I know we have so many questions. What is interesting about something like that, though, with screen printing, for example, to be able to be like, do you know Andy Warhol? That he did screen printing. He was able to create a lot of versions of
Well,
it because of that.
to your point, sometimes you explain what you do.
Yeah,
Almost what I've been focusing on lately is what I don't do. So I
sure.
start with Andy Warhol, but then
Yeah,
I say what makes me different is I hand cut all those stencils. He was
totally.
using other people's uh, photographs
Yeah,
and sending them out to get burned onto the screen. So
right.
what I do is actually a little more complicated. And,
Absolutely.
but you don't knock the other artist.
Right,
You're not going to compete with Warhol. You're just going to bring them up and say, "Well, I'm so passionate he was with his process, but mine."
right.
So something we should also focus on what we don't do or what we don't offer, right?
Absolutely.
Like you
Yeah,
said, I'm only commissioned based artist. This is
right.
what I don't do. I don't, and that was like, wow, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So, and again, this all for everyone will come out of a place of practicing on how to talk about your art and navigating different people that you're dealing with. But yeah.
Amanda, do you want to jump in and ask your question quickly, just directly to Sharon, or do you want me to ask it for you? Okay, she's at work. Perfect. Okay, I'll be Amanda for a second. So one thing I struggle with ceramics is folks understanding the value of handmade work versus a mass-produced object. They seem to understand this with paintings versus prints, but ceramics is lagging behind, especially for the casual buyer. What are good ways to show folks the high level of craft that adds value to the work without dumping on, without info dumping on your process?
Yeah. I mean, this is so hard, right? Like, this is such a common issue in the arts across the board, right? Like, same in fashion, all the different things. Um, and I'd even say for computer programmers, right? Why hire somebody? I saw that comment. Why hire somebody to create something specifically for you when you can just go onto Wix and use their pre-made platform? Ultimately, it's about how do I say this? How do I say this? That's why you're asking me to say this. It's about helping find it's I'm so sorry. There's like 17 different sentences popping into my brain at the same as I'm trying to say this. So it's about getting a person to think about the connection to the piece, right? And I guess what I mean by this is, yes, you absolutely let them know you can go onto Amazon and buy a ceramic mug that looks handmade and was created. But then you are no longer investing in a piece. You are no longer creating something that is part of history, right? Like, how can you make it feel a little grander in the moment? This is all part of that sales pitch. And if someone's going to fight with you on it, then they're probably just not your client. And that's okay. I know it can be really scary to kind of send off a potential sale, but also then if they were to buy it, if you were able to convince them to buy it and then they go home and it's in their home and they're just like to their friend, yeah, it was beautiful. It was just like really expensive. And then the friend is like, oh my God, I saw something like that on this website. That's just going to create a strangeness. So you don't have to feel like you need to fight everyone that you are talking to. If you are if someone's really interested in being like, why would this be priced this way? Why would it be worth for me to buy this? You can say, well, what does it make you feel? Do you connect to it? For you, let's say a mug, right? Do you have a specific ritual? I know I have a very, very specific mug that I use when it's snowing and I'm sitting on my favorite armchair with a book and a blanket. And it's that mug that I have to use because I hold it and the way it feels is so special to me and my hand where I bought it, the whole thing. So it could also be about getting them to understand the value in a different way and their, again, what could be their emotional attachment to it. Um, and like, again, if there's a client that just really, really doesn't get it, you can just say, do you want something one of a kind, or are you looking for something that's mass produced?
Subtle dig on this.
You know, like you just gotta ask them different questions.
Well, the difference is price and value, right?
Yes,
If they don't understand your price, then they don't see the value, and you need to present your value properly. And
exactly.
sometimes they don't value you. So, like you said,
Right. And then that's just not your client. And if they just keep going at it, you've every right to just be like, we can agree to disagree. It's okay for you to not like my work. And then they'll be like, oh, and it's like, have a great day.
Yeah. Okay,
That's okay.
I want to keep us on track for
Yes.
our timeline. So we have a couple more great questions, and we're running low on time. So I'm going to ask them for folks, and then if it's your question, feel free to come off mute and add. But Rochelle's asking, can you speak to developing a self-expression slash style that is recognized as your work, and how that process comes to life, if it's something about like, a specific theme or a specific like aesthetic, and how do you kind of stay in that bucket to maintain your brand versus branch out and explore?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just have to hold your ground, right? You have to just, when you're talking to people, and to really be like, right now, this is what is inspiring me. At the moment, this is what I'm drawn to because X, Y, and Z. I think it's easy for us to think that we have to speak in a much larger way about our work, but you kind of just have to let people, this is just how your brain works. This is just how your hands work. And that's just what you share and tell people. On your website, then have a specific section that talks about what am I doing now? Have that come out. Um, does that answer the question?
Well, yeah, hi, this is Rochelle. Thank you
Hi.
for taking my question. I am a interior designer by profession who dabbles in photography and painting in all mediums. And I guess I specifically always like this question because I sit down and start painting, and coming from an interior designer perspective, I'm already color paletting, right, to an interior.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, if my painting comes out and it's very impressionistic, I don't want it to fall into a sea of millions of artists who are impressionistic. And I just wondered if there were tips and tricks, like storyboarding or, thumbnail sketches, or what do you do that really kind of gives your art a unique kind of view, and even though you're still in an impressionistic genre? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes back to one of like the very, very early things I spoke about, and it's just the thing of, yes, there are a lot of impressionistic people out there, but that doesn't make your work any less It's again just about saying to someone, this is what I created. What do you experience when you look at this, right? If it's from that interior designer perspective and you're creating a space for a client and you are then also able to create them original artwork, I mean, what an
Yeah.
incredible win, right?
Well, I think so.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, please make sure that you're advertising that um in your interior design profile as well, that you are an interior designer that also can help create original artwork that is already in line with the design and the vision of the space. Um, and then what's amazing about that is, yes, this piece of art is created for this space, but this is then something that can move with you from home to home, and you're keeping a piece of your history with wherever you move on in life, right? So I wouldn't worry about it something looking similar. It's more of, I was working inside of this palette and this was what inspired me. It made me think about the great impressionist painters. It made me feel like you needed a work that was looser and expanding in your space. You know what I mean? It's like, don't lie to them. Just talk about where the inspiration came from and why, and then they'll be excited about it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Mark, do you want to jump in? You had a couple good questions. I don't know if you want to come off mute, but just in terms of talking about your art.
Yeah, I can try and do that. That's cool. So there was a bit where I think you were talking about like balancing between art world speak versus customer speak, or how we talk to our clients directly, right? So I'm wondering how we balance that with like an online profile such as what we have with Cohart. You know, kind of, are we talking to the art world, or is it somewhere in between? Obviously, there are potentially direct customers there. And the second part is like the bio versus statement, and just how personal to go, you know, into like things about your personal background, and you know, even though they might be hard to talk about, but they're also like some of the reasons why you create and things like that, and just kind of how you balance all of that sort of stuff as well in your statement, you know.
Yeah.
uh
Oh.
yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, of
There's
course.
kind of two or three different things there.
I mean, I think the bio versus your statement and the emotional thing, again, I know that I'm saying this a lot, but it's kind of up to you. You don't want to, you want to be careful of people pitying you and your work and feeling like they're buying something that they can't relate to, right? So you want to find the balance of how to offer personal things that have happened in your life. Like I can say I started painting because in 2013 I was going through a very difficult time. Um, I realized that you can say something as simple as that, as going through a very difficult time, and then you can get more specific around like, my journey to coming out was really, really uh scary. And it started to make me think about all these different ways of looking at artwork as well. Right? So it's about using our personal life as information to funnel into the art, as opposed to using the art as a way to funnel into our personal life, if that
Mm,
makes sense. So thinking
yeah,
about it that way.
I
Um,
like.
Yeah. And then the other, the art, different types of clients. So in something like a cohort profile in particular, what's kind of great is you can have the emotional story and then under list all the specs, list the things that a gallery might need to know. You always want to include um, you can say this work was inspired by Scooby-Doo, Skadooby-Doo-Bop. And then underneath, this work was created with this specific type of process. The people that understand that are going to love to read that. The people that don't understand it are going to only pay attention to the first part. So you can offer all the information and hit both spheres in the same space. Just have them in two different paragraphs, or one's a paragraph and one is like bullet point information. And that can be really helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We got time for one last question. And this is to your point, Sharone, we could have a whole nother masterclass on commissions as well, but this is about just positioning yourself to get commissions. Like, how do you Because I think you do a great job with your website in terms of how it's framed, but how do you build trust to get that deposit with a
Yeah.
client who might be coming in from an online channel?
Yeah. Yeah. I hate to say it, it just takes time. It takes time. Again, or not again, but your your friends and family are your best weapon. Um, and maybe I shouldn't say weapon, but they're your best first clients. They are the ones that will come to you and they want to support you, but then they have friends, right? They have people that they know. They have coworkers. If there's actual work that they have commissioned from you or you've gifted, those are your first examples. And then you just have to build from there. My whole thing started because I created a painting and I put it on Instagram, and a friend of mine was like, I want to get a painting. And I was like, what? And that's that, right? And then if there's people that you're talking to as well that are loving your work, but maybe they're not connecting to something specific, then you're able to just say, I'm also happy to create a commission for you. And then you bring in that specific commission template that is your way of working. It's just about putting yourself out there. Include it in your social media, include it on your website, have a section for it. If you're in an art fair, have specific material that they can walk away with that is just for your commissions and not the whole. I always have a brochure commission and then just a general Art by Sharone commission brochure. And those are the things that people can walk away with. Like, this is my commission brochure, right? I then have images of all my art, my commission process, that they know what they have to prepare when they come talk to me, and then what a final result is with all the descriptors of that. And then a small, just little like, who's Sharone? And look, it's my face and short hair, right? So that's the thing with commissions. You can't apologize. Again, you cannot be the one that's scared. Even if you're shaking in your boots, they are the one that is scared, and you guide them along. But you just gotta offer it. You have to have a specific place for it on your website, make content around it. And if you don't have a client and you want to show it, make up a fake client and create a work making it seem like you have that client. Because then at the end of the day, you have that experience, right? Or offer a free painting to someone. That's what I did. I know, Kendall, we're like so close on time. Um, but I started a part of my business, which is, this is going to really turn some people off, but I offer a service of ash painting where I turn ashes into paint and then create abstract works inspired by someone's life after they've passed away. That's a weird thing to offer to people. So the first couple of commissions that I did were going to friends that I know have family members that have passed away, or even a pet, and have been like, I would love to do this for you for free. I know this is experimental, but you will have a piece of work in the end. And then, as long as you give me the rights to be able to photograph and advertise, and you can let me know how little or how much I'm allowed to share from the personal perspective.
Amazing. All right, Sharone, thank you so much for your time. There's one last question that I think is a rapid fire, but like your top 3 best opening lines when someone walks into your booth.
Ooh, okay. Um, do you have any questions about the specific piece you're looking at? Uh, hey, just so you know, all of my works are inspired by blank, so look out for blank, right? Like with my works, I always say my works are all inspired by really specific uh memories and ideas, so make sure you read my titles. Um, and also just being like, what's the last thing? I'm so bad at rapid fire. I would do terrible on those like Vogue magazine like rapid fire question things. Um, or just being able to be like, I love your earrings. They remind me of this work. You match this painting, right? Automatically take what that person has on them and connect it to here. The earring thing with certain people, or like a shirt or a scarf, is one of my biggest ins at a fair, is being like, oh my God, I love your shirt. You match this painting. Can I take a picture of you in front of my painting?
There you go. Everyone's got an ego, so play it.
Everyone has ego. Yes.
Okay, well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Sharon. If you want more of Sharon's advice, we would recommend you check out participating at the Superfair. And this is coaching that their whole team offers all the artists that join the fair, which is like a huge value add. So she's a wealth of knowledge. Again, she shared a lot within the 60 minutes. We'll send a recap and a recording and her contact information if you have more questions. But thank you so much for being with us here today, Sharon. We really appreciate it.
Of course, so exciting to be here. I love Cohart. And yes, please, if you want to sign up for the Superfair, email someone on our team, and there might be a discount specifically from webinar. I don't know, but it could be. And you all get free coaching with me if you have a booth at the fair, and we'll talk about your curation, your selling process, and specifically your price points. So,
Okay, I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you
okay,
all.
bye.
Bye-bye.